Hey everybody, welcome back to Justin on Money. I'm Justin, and today's video is going to be somewhat taken from a different angle when it comes to the topic. Okay, and I want to first off by saying this. I do not and will never, ever, under any circumstance, justify, condone, or even hint at the behaviors in the horrid acts of this man in any way, shape, or form. But today's video is about kind of how it might have gotten to that point, okay, from a money and banking standpoint, okay? So I wanted to lay that out up front because this is a very sensitive topic, and in no way do I want to offend or undermine the victims, especially. So here we go. So I want to start off by saying what banking actually does. Okay, so most people think banking does three kind of simple things, okay? It moves money, it stores money, and it lends money, okay? But that is just a little bit incomplete, okay? Modern banking also does something else, something far more important, okay? It manages power, risk, and consequences, okay? Who bears risks, who avoids scrutiny, and who gets distance from accountability, okay? That's not a bug in the system. That's just the system. And once you understand that, stories like Epstein starting to look random, okay? They start looking structural, okay? Epstein was not a criminal anomaly. Okay, Epstein is often portrayed as a singular monster, okay? But I think if we frame that, it does miss the point we're trying to make, okay? He didn't invent anything. He didn't create a new model. He occupied a role, okay? A role that only exists when wealth is highly concentrated. Regulation is fragmented, okay? Jurisdictions don't talk cleanly to each other. And discretion is more valuable than transparency. Epstein wasn't, the product, okay? I believe he was more of the interface than anything. But the concept of liquidity, we need to talk about. In finance, liquidity means something very specific. It means the ability to transact without friction, without moving prices, without drawing attention, without triggering consequences. Epstein didn't provide financial liquidity. He provided social and legal liquidity. He allowed people to move between social circles, cross jurisdictions, transfer reputation risk, and absorb legal complexity. That's the same function banks perform, okay, just with balance sheets instead of people. And this is why the analogy isn't poetic. There's a lot of precision in this, okay? And so we need to talk about why the ultra wealthy need intermediaries, okay? At low levels of wealth, money solves problems. At high levels of wealth, money creates problems, okay? Visibility, exposure, regulatory attention, political risk, family disputes, jurisdictional conflict. I mean, the list goes on. The ultra wealthy don't ask, how do I make another 5%? They start to ask questions like, how do I move through the world without consequences? Epstein's value proposition wasn't return on capital. It was return on insulation at its core. So that brings us to private banking and the architecture of distance. This is where I think money and banking come in directly with Epstein, okay? Private banking, offshore structures, trusts, foundations, custodians, these don't exist to beat the market. They exist to create distance. Distance between asset ownership and control, legal responsibility and benefit, risk and exposure, okay? The more money you have, the more layers of that you get. Epstein operated inside those layers, not illegally, not outside the system, inside it. This is how the system is structured. Now, the dollar system, okay, is definitely an enabler in this, okay? If we zoom out, Epstein's model only works in a specific global monetary system, and that's the dollar system. This is a system that operates offshore, relies on correspondent banking, fragments jurisdictions, allows enforcement to be selective. This system gives the United States enormous power, but it also creates escape valves. When capital, influence, and risk can move faster than accountability, those intermediaries thrive. Epstein didn't undermine the dollar system. He exploited the space it creates. And that's a really important thing to focus on, okay? Now, why is it that politicians specifically are especially vulnerable? This isn't just about billionaires, okay? Politicians face a different kind of risk. They have power today, but a lot of uncertainty tomorrow. Once office ends, that protection disappears. We got to ask, what replaces it? Boards, foundations, advisory roles, speaking circuits, global networks. Epstein didn't need to bribe politicians. He offered trajectory smoothing, if you will, and that's far more effective. So this is why protection happens, okay? We don't need to get into conspiracies at all about this, okay? We don't need to get into any of the conspiracy, actually, to explain why Epstein kind of lingered, okay? You only need incentives in this context. Institutions prioritize stability, quiet resolutions, reputational containment, and system continuity. Scandals that touch banks, donors, foundations, and political networks are treated differently. And evil isn't really the reason. I think because disorder is extremely expensive, and banking systems are designed to minimize disorder. So we need to ask ourselves why this becomes a systemic risk issue. And here's why I think that this kind of really matters. People don't lose faith in money just because of inflation. Okay, they lose faith when rules feel a little uneven, asymmetric. Okay, enforcement feels selective, and accountability looks optional. That's when populism rises. That's when regulation swings wildly, capital flees, and trust starts to collapse. And these aren't problems of, morality. That's a banking stability problem. And so here's the transition we're watching right now. The forward-looking part, okay? The system is changing. I think we're moving from human discretion to algorithmic enforcement, private gatekeepers to programmable compliance, and reputation to data. Stable coins, CBDCs, on-chain settlement. These don't eliminate power, the concentration of power. I think they just recode it in a way. And that's a different topic. But the question isn't whether gatekeepers disappear in this context. The question is who replaces them? Okay? I think here's the question that I think you guys should sit with, and everybody should sit with. When people ask, why does Epstein matter for money and banking? I think the answer is somewhat simple. Because he shows us how the system behaves when wealth concentrates, when accountability fragments, and discretion becomes kind of the real currency, unit of account. He wasn't a glitch. Okay, I think he might have been a stress test. So, in closing here, I want to ask you guys something. If Epstein was a product of the financial system, not an exception, what does that say about where money and power are headed next? Are we building transparency, or are we just automating insulation? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Because this conversation isn't about the past. It's about the system we're building now. So I want to thank you for listening to this video. And again, I want to reiterate that there's a lot of information out there. But I wanted to just bring a different angle and come from a different view on this. And it's a very sensitive topic, very touchy, but I think it's a different way to look at what's going on. And we can do that without undermining or forgetting the really sick things that you can hear when you start to read or listen to other people discussing what's taken place. So I want to thank you for being here. I'm Justin. This is Justin on Money, and I'll see you next time.